And we take that, and the example I give is what we really want to be able to do is have the perception system that's machine learned, say, for example, be able to tell that a tumbleweed's a tumbleweed. Because you guys all know if a tumbleweed is in the middle of the road, are you going to swerve to avoid it, or are you going to hit the tumbleweed? Right? I think we all know that we should hit the tumbleweed because it's not going to hurt anything. And so what we are trying to do is, through machine learning, treat our perception model, our AI model, to figure out that a tumbleweed is a tumbleweed. So we'll put in hundreds of different logs of tumbleweeds. It happens a lot in Texas, as you can imagine, flying across the road, different angles, speeds, everything. And we label it going into the model, and we say, this is a tumbleweed. And they train and they figure out how to make a decision on their own when they see it in a slightly different scenario. It's about pattern recognition, right? This is all pattern recognition of this is a tumbleweed, this is a person, this is that, and not just tumbleweed, but everything around you, right? So that they can label things in the right way so that the vehicle can make the right decisions for the interaction it's having on the road. This is what machine learning is. This is how you train a model. And so I just thought I'd give a little context to that ML engineer. That's a very important piece of how you make something act like a human, is you have to train it. And then what you do is a whole bunch of different scenarios that you didn't use to train, you run those as test cases, right? So you take another 200 examples that you didn't train on, you put it through and you say, did it properly classify it as a tumbleweed? And we do this over and over and over again for all these situations, and ultimately leading to Jason's last point when we address it, like, how do we ensure that the vehicle's safe? Well, that's obviously a big part of it, is training. And then verification, and we call this verifiable AI. It's like how you can verify that your system's going to make the right decisions at the smallest increment of the module possible. So that's the way that we handle that. So Jason would like me to talk about a little bit like safety, right? Safety is important. It's in our mission. It's the first term, safety. People do not want to necessarily adopt self-driving vehicles if they're not safe. Nobody would want to get in them, right? So the ways that we think about safety, right, is there's over 500,000 truck-related accidents a year on our roadways, and almost 6,000 deaths per year, right? So we clearly have existing safety issues with our truck drivers right now, and the trucks on the road. And everybody knows, vehicles as a whole. We have problems. Number one problem: people get distracted. People get complacent. You drive the same route every time. I just did it on 19th on the way here. There's the overhead pedestrian lights, and I've driven the damn road so many times, I don't even look at the light. I don't. And I just went through today, like, I didn't look at it, and that's like very bad, right? We get very complacent. So these are never distracted. They're on 24/7. They never get distracted. They're getting data at 100 millisecond update rate. That's generally quicker than we can perceive our environment. We also can do training in virtual environments, since this is a computer, right? Is we can create millions of mock scenarios, cars sideswiping the trailer, this, whatever they might be, situations that we are certainly not going to try to encounter on the road to get that training data, right? And so we can create all these corner cases, millions of scenarios where we take the real data with mock scenarios and we say, how would the system respond to this? And we make verification techniques where we make it pass all these different scenarios before we'll deploy it and put it on the roads, which is what we've been doing for the last 7 years before commercial launch. But we continue to do that. It's a never-ending thing that we continue to do. So simulation is a big piece of that. We all know the first time my oldest child's almost about ready to start driving, and they're new and they don't know what to perceive and should look in the rear view, and they're learning. But where are they learning? On the road. That's scary. I'm not sure what I'm going to do when my daughter actually gets to that age. So it's like they're learning in the real world environments, which is really scary. All of our stuff works exactly the same. There's no like learning on the fly. It's just like it's going to work the same as the 1,000 other ones. And it's already learned. It's already a professional driver with 200 million miles of driving information, right? Like that's a big differentiator between humans and what we can do with, say, computers. Everything is redundant on our systems because safety is critical to get adopted widely with our people, right? And so we have redundant steering, redundant braking, redundant power, redundant sensors, redundant everything, so that since there's not a human behind the wheel, we need that redundancy. Built to be functionally safe. I always use the example of like when your headlight goes out, what does your blinker do? maybe this is just my vehicle, but it blinks really fast, right? It's telling you that your headlights out. Everything that we build into our sensors is completely functional safe. We call this ASIL rated, so that anytime we have to build in and say in any way our system can fault or not be performant to be perceived in the environment properly, we have to create a faulted scenario, tell the perception system, and they do a move to shoulder, right? So like everything's functionally safe. We know when anything's not working properly. And then finally, as we talk about getting tens and now maybe hundreds this year and thousands in the future, all that data they're collecting and going into AI data centers, into our SWS clouds, that's new data that we can train on. So we get more and more and more and more simulation and more scenarios. And so these machines are always continuously learning all the time. Every new data piece that comes up, we feed it in, we train, they learn. So one truck is learning from 1,000 different trucks. Like we don't get to do that in our environment. I don't get to learn from your driving habits and what you've done. So it's like this really interesting way to think about how we can make these things very safe. So I don't have any great asks for you. I think what the asks were, I kind of already went and done, is develop the Galton College program. I ask that we support that and think about ways to continue to grow and put capital into that, because it's only going to get more powerful as physical AI becomes more of a reality. We need photonics technicians to be able to support these sensors. We started new programs at Technical College in Dallas as well. What we call transformational workforce, is taking the actual, maybe not just truck drivers, but mechanics, and moving them into servicing our trucks, servicing our sensors, doing harness inspections, all those types of things as well. And so Aurora's very active, as I was when I started Blackmore, of thinking about this next generation workforce and kind of making a pivot for some of those people to get into kind of these lanes that we see are going to be very big: quantum, physical AI, sensors, photonics. And as always, you guys don't drive a lot of policy, but kind of the same ask there from a policy perspective. If we start blocking the ability to test autonomous vehicles in our state, we're really going to limit our capabilities and our economic growth potential. So I work a lot, obviously, with the government relations team at Aurora to sit on policy bills and make sure we're not putting in problematic legislation that's going to block the testing of AVs, because we're obviously on the Sun Belt for a reason. The weather is a lot better and we don't get snow and rain and ice. We will be able to handle it. We will begin to move northwards. There's going to be opportunities to do testing on the roadways up here if enabled. But number one, from a workforce board, it's like, keep finding those opportunities. Our technician program has been a huge success, and I ask that you guys lead into that. But I appreciate the time today, and let me know if you guys have any questions.
So we talked about AI in healthcare. We talked about AI in autonomous vehicles. Now we're going to talk about a controversial topic: data itself. Where do we keep the data? Data centers. It's obvious that data is becoming the currency of the future. So I'd like to introduce our last guest speaker, Joshua Rhines, who has a data center company here in Montana already. Josh.
Hello, everyone. I'm Joshua Rhines, founder and CEO of Cloud AI. I've taken a little different approach than a lot of the hyperscalers have. We take our approach by doing retrofits and existing infrastructure and doing smaller power setups, like under 1 megawatt. But in general, I'm a big believer in AI infrastructure for the future. I believe if we don't embrace it now, we'll look back in history as not embracing fiber internet, not embracing dial-up, not embracing computers in general. And I'm a believer that AI is the biggest force multiplier we've seen at least in my lifetime. And in Montana, where there's only 1 million of us, if we can add a 25 to 100x to our average person, average employee, average entrepreneur, that's a big step. And so my company is based in Missoula. We work with companies around mostly Western Montana. We build out AI. That looks a couple different ways. We build out these custom AI data centers. And we also build out AI platforms, AI software, AI integration. For many companies in Montana, that's quite different. Some people are still on notepads in the back office, and some people look like Star Trek in the back office. But I'm a believer that the whole state can use locals to help us move forward, and that supporting programs will actually lead to more job growth. In the couple dozen customers that we've been working with over the last 3 or 4 months, We haven't seen anybody that's actually looking to get rid of anybody. Everybody's overworked and just looking to reclaim a few hours in their day. That's either for their employees, the receptionists, or themselves. So they can go play with their kids at the end of the day or something on the weekend. So I'm a believer that AI can assist humans, not replace them. And that's the approach that we've taken with our company. On a larger scale, the need for compute, AI specific compute is growing approximately 35 to 40% a year. But the electrified sites that can support these type of things, which is essentially AI GPU servers, big metal server that goes in a rack, creates a ton of heat, you need to cool it down, you essentially deliver that over fiber, which is AI compute, and this powers research, inference training, chatbots, anything generating images of cats, whatever. And getting these set up in the electrified sites that are ready for them is a challenge because AI data centers take a lot more cooling and more updated infrastructure. And despite what you may have heard from some of the Missoula backlash over the Bonner AI data center, the modern AI data center does not drain rivers. It does not have that type of impact because the cooling approach is nothing like that. You use a closed loop water system, which means that you fill your initial system with anywhere from 1,000 to 50,000 gallons of water. It goes through a loop. It warms up the water from about 50 degrees to 75, 80, cools it back down to 50, and it just goes through a loop. There's some evaporation in the summer months in July and August, usually in Montana, but that's also a reason why Montana is a great place to do this type of infrastructure. I mean, we hear on the news, they're putting up a new data center in Texas, Arizona every day, every week. Those are areas where the average temperature is in the 80s, the 90s year round. In Montana, we're looking at an average in the low 40s in most areas. Some areas like Kalispell and Great Falls even lower. And that equates to free cooling for 6 to 9 months a year. So Montana itself is a great state to put infrastructure in. And I implore everybody to support local companies that are looking to do this, because if they're a local or state company, they're going to keep the compute in state. If an out-of-state hyperscaler comes in like Meta or Microsoft, they will ship all of the data back to Seattle, San Francisco, or wherever their data farm is. But if we can support independent, smaller projects within the state, then the actual utility and the benefits from the AI centers actually go to customers in Montana and the Northwest and people that are more aligned with our quality of living and the progress we're trying to push forward here. And that's my AI rant for everybody today. I appreciate you giving me the stage here and letting me talk to you, and I'll be around after to answer any questions.
So we had infrastructure, we had healthcare, we have autonomous vehicles. Now we get a pivot, we're gonna do a panel discussing about AI specifically in workforce. I have the pleasure of inviting to the stage the Chief AI Officer for the state. Thank you, Chris. Joe Teal from MUS, and Mrs. Smith from Code Girls. And I think I might just steal this mic if I can. Yeah. Sorry.
Got it. Testing.
All right, well, thank you for coming this afternoon. We're going to go through a series of questions for the panel and then open it up to a Q&A and invite our industry partners to come back and join us for that. But first, I'd just like to start by asking, what do you do in AI right now? Tell me about why AI is important to you, and introduce yourself. And Marianne, if you want to go ahead and start.
Yeah, I'm Marianne Smith. I'm the founder and CEO of Code Girls United. We started way back in 2016 to teach girls computer science, and business skills, heavy on the business skills. And we started using AI in our program 3 years ago with our girls. They're 4th to 8th grade, but now we have a component that actually goes up to 12th grade. And here at MSU, some students now too. So this came about because we use a tool called App Inventor. They included a module for AI and we started using it. Well, last year we realized, wait a minute, I've got a little girl here who's telling me that her chat GPT is her friend. Well, we've never used chat GPT in the program, so it was kind of like, oh my gosh, we have got to start teaching girls exactly what AI is and that it's not their friend, because they're not hearing it from anybody else. So that's kind of our foray into AI, and we now have an AI Academy on YouTube. It's free. Kids can watch it all over the place.
Hi, everybody. Joe Teal. I'm with the State University System. And, you know, I think our starting frame is AI changes everything that we do. Like we have organizations that struggle for resources. It needs to change how we operate so that we're more efficient. We educate students. It's going to change their lives and their occupations. So we need to be thinking about how we're training. And part of what the business that we're in is in creating new knowledge. And we want to leverage our university faculty and partnerships to push forward the uses of AI that are specific to some of Montana's use cases and needs and opportunities. And in that, you know, you have 9,000 employees across the university system, 40,000 students. You have every perspective from folks who are pushing for the frontier. And, you know, I'll talk a bit about a few of those examples, down to, you know, the faculty member who decided he'd try out this email thing a few months ago. And that creates a real challenge of saying there are reasonable skeptics to this AI change. And for those reasonable skeptics, we need to have some clear rules of thumb to say, here are some established practices around AI. For our students, we need to make sure that there's access to the frontier models, because without access to those frontier models within a safe, you know, a safe data environment, they're not going to be competitive or really know the transformative power of this work. And then we need to be investing in a lot of the folks who can, whether it be in research, whether it be in our operations, whether it be in our classrooms, push forward our ideation, our thinking about, hey, how can we use these tools well? And so over the past year, we've had a great statewide task force that set out some of those basics and some of those immediate next steps. Within that is launching soon a tool called chatmt.ai that's going to provide access across your university system and beyond to frontier data models, frontier AI models, so that they're accessible in research labs and classrooms. We're all aboard on how we can provide broad access to training on basic AI competencies, whether that's to our workers or to our students. We have a partnership with Google that's providing licensing to all university system and community college campuses. And Brad, pretty soon, we'll be talking about tribal colleges, if we can extend that licensing out that direction, to Google AI certifications and making those available across our employees and our student populations. And then a lot of thought about how do we invest in our leaders in this space. We've had a statewide teaching scholars program that's organized communities around faculty that are being thoughtful and proactive about how are we changing our curriculum as AI is coming on board. And if you all haven't yet, you should certainly visit with Jason Neifer, who's a part of SWIB. But the Digital Academy's Frontier Learning Lab, I think, has a spectacular and parallel approach on the K-12 side. How are we getting, how AI tools can be transformative in front of educators, and with some of the baselines of how to start incorporating that thoughtfully.
Hi, I'm Chris Starwich, Chief AI Officer for the state of Montana. Been in the role 6 months, so it's a newly appointed role. Not appointed, a new role. And with that, before there, I was at Xbox Microsoft, where I was the first product manager for their complete compliance environment. And we were working with Bing and Office as well around leveraging AI to protect users and their data and that kind of thing. So in the role 6 months, I've been in Bozeman actually 21 years, maybe 22 years now. So I've been here a while. But I've worked for Microsoft, Oracle, as well as 2 startups and several other tech companies in town as well. And yeah, so what some of the things that we're doing at the state, so within the first few weeks, we already started the procurement process to do a qualified vendor list. That closed last week. And they're now reviewing those things. So really trying to unlock the tools at the state level. We have about 14,000 employees at the state level and trying to unlock those tools for them. Part of my role is AI upskilling those employees as well. And so that includes, we literally just started grassroots coffee talks and having conversation, just talking out loud about AI. First coffee talk had about 35 people. Now the coffee talks are actually run by other people. 25-minute sessions with over 100 people on each of those sessions, just talking, how do I do this? What is it? What's prompting? What's context engineering? How can I do this? How can I do it safely? How can I do it responsibly? And literally this week, we've announced additional work groups around governance, around developers, around lawyers, as well as office hours, drop-in kind of thing. But it's like, I just have a question, just want to talk to an expert. So we're already well in motion with a lot of those things as well. Additionally, within the first few weeks of employment, we ended up spinning up a chief AI officer site with curated training. One of the things that we talked about was how do we enable people? And I said, well, we're not going to do traditional learning. Traditional learning, record a video, set out a video, have people watch the video, take a certification. I call this the layer cake approach. You have to, if I roll back a little bit, we take the mobile phone. We have about 40 years as a society to learn how to use a mobile phone. We've had about 4 with this thing called AI as a society. And so things are happening a little quicker. And so how do you help people? You have conversations, right? You have conversations where they're at. Everybody's on a different part of their AI learning journey right now. Some still don't even know what prompting means. And some of us are, I have 11 agents with over 100 skills writing code every day on 3 projects. And literally 3 weeks ago, we launched the first 100% AI built app at the state, launched and it's being used today for the House Bill 10 requests. And so those things are happening very, very quickly. So you can't use the traditional model of training certified. You have to leverage people. And I'll just leave with that. At the end of the day, this is, can I say 100%? 99.9% about people leveraging those great tools that we have. And it's going to be a great journey.
So since this board is focused on workforce, why don't we start at the beginning? It's a good place to start, K through 12. There's been a lot of discussion and a lot of states have moved forward with banning social media and cell phones in schools. There's also been conversations about whether or not it's appropriate to have AI in the K through 12 space. And Marianne, I'm just curious, what is your thoughts on AI in K through 12, given that some young women are beginning to seek emotional support and friendship with AI?
Yeah, and these are young kids that I'm hearing this from. I'm not hearing this, these kind of questions that are coming from kids that are 16 or 17. These are 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. First off, they have no idea that AI is wrong sometimes. They don't know this. No one's teaching them this. And again, part of this goes back to just how fast AI is changing and how fast things are moving. But at the same time, there's no one giving our K through 12 students any guidance. And I know Jason's doing some work with teaching teachers. It's just not getting filtered down fast enough to the kids. This is, and pretending like the kids are not using this is pretending like back in the old days that no kids used the internet. It was only adults. It's akin to the same thing, but just moving so much faster. And they have no guidelines. They don't know that it's not right. They don't know that it's a mirror reflecting what they want to hear. They have nobody telling them this. And to me, that's the most disturbing thing, because I do believe our Montana kids, all of our kids, deserve education, and they deserve to understand this thing that, frankly, there's a bunch of us in this room, may not really impact our lives, but for them, this is their future. It's going to affect every job. It's going to affect everything they do in their lives. And they have zero understanding, and we can't roll it out fast enough to explain it. You know, the other problem, I'll get on my soapbox about computer science, we are the last in the country for computer science education, last state. And some other states, particularly Utah, was able to put AI education on top of their computer science education. So they were able to, I mean, they taught like 7,000 teachers in 10 months, and we're already rolling out their AI education program through K through 12. And it's not just for college kids. You know, we have all these people doing apprentices. Eventually, they're gonna wanna roll out and do their own businesses. It's so fast. AI can set up your website, it can take care of your invoicing, it can do all of these things. So even our trades kids deserve to learn about this, so it can make their lives easier as they finish their programs and go into the workforce too. So I'm a big, huge advocate of teaching AI. I don't think it's something that we should hide and be afraid of. But again, it's a tool. The whole thing, this is a tool. It can make your life better. It is not your friend. It's not always right. And if we could just teach those three things to kids, we would be way ahead of the game. But I do think that, you know, pretending like it's not there and kids are not using it is a mistake, because I could probably pull 10 kids off the street right now that are in 5th grade, and they'll tell you all about, oh, well, that picture is not real. That's AI. This one's real. Oh, you can tell on the hands. But the problem is that things are getting better and better and better. So it's even harder and harder to tell the difference. So.
Any others want to weigh in on that? Yep. I'll switch to entry-level positions. Industry feedback suggests that entry-level roles, typically those starting for interns or new grads, are vanishing as AI tasks take over some of those traditional positions. Although this offers an immediate savings, it also creates a future talent gap by stalling the growth of next generation's senior leaders. In light of this shift, what kind of strategies should these individuals use, these students, or people upscaling, integrate into an AI-driven market? How do we help them make that transition? So I'll ask that of all of us.
Yeah, I'll kind of start off, you know, listening to folks thus far in the first panel, I haven't heard anybody say we're not hiring college students. I've seen this over and over again where we're actually looking for more people interested in what we're doing. What I've seen previously as well as at the state is folks are now able to explore with other types of roles. They're able to, hey, I'm kind of tired of being a project manager. Can I be a product manager? And can I vibe code a little bit of a UI? And so what I think you're seeing is this, I'll call it skill blurring, if I could use that word, that allows people to kind of shift around with the skills that they have. And I'm seeing more people interested in doing those kind of things. So I think those that are coming out of college, you know, what am I looking for? You know, as we consider folks, we're looking for those that can be creative, right? Those that are willing to try more than anything else, and those that have an interest in using the tools and technology that are available to them. I would just, yeah, I don't see anything changing other than looking for more people wanting to do things in a new way.
A couple things I completely agree. Like I think that for new graduates, demonstrating that you're adaptable and can learn these new technologies that are changing at such a rapid pace. That means having a good structure to be exposed to them in problem and project-based and in work-based settings. You know, this isn't the first time that technology has disrupted the workplace, and in prior times, turns out that humans found other places to deploy their skills. And there's actually interesting work on, in past, the United States and our education system has been faster than peers at redeploying and adapting to new technology. And part of that is thinking about, well, what are the critical thinking skill sets that we value in our education system that are gonna be robust to, hey, your entire occupation is now replaced by an AI task and you need to think about how you're incorporating that in your work. I think what we need to be doing is figuring out as educators and industry folks, how are we thoughtfully introducing folks to AI? But given how unpredictable its impact is on our economy and on jobs, also what are competencies, skills, ways of knowing, ways of doing, they're gonna mean that if you're, an occupation that previously changed substantially in a 15 or 20-year time frame is now changing on a 4 to 6 year time frame, that you know how to go through that transition and you can relearn, you can upskill. What are the capabilities that we need to be teaching at the K-12 level and in higher education that are going to make it so people can do that 6 or 7 times over the course of their career with a technology that's changing this swiftly?
Yeah, I agree. It's the education that has to do with it, but I also feel that some of our grads or some of our kids that are getting ready to graduate is this connection between the workforce and like the colleges. It needs to be strengthened so that we can keep our kids in Montana. I do think that there's a lot of pull from other industries to pull them out. I will say something about IBM, which, it's like the dinosaur, but they just put out an announcement a few weeks ago that they were going to be hiring all kinds of new grads because they're having a problem with their older employees not adapting to the AI environment. So it's kind of the reverse for them. Now that may only be IBM, it may not be some other country or companies, but I do think that there are plenty of opportunities. But the kids, the grads and even the high school kids, they need to be well versed in this because every job is going to have something with this.
So that's one thing that's come up with me personally. I have a daughter who's in computer science here at MSU. Lord willing, she'll graduate less than 2 weeks, so fingers crossed. But in her sophomore year, she attended a webinar by an MIT professor who explicitly said, if you're in computer science in a 4-year school, switch your degree. There's no path in basic coding. And she took that to heart. She pivoted and did something different. And I think this goes to Joe's point. Our paths aren't as concrete as they used to be. So one of the skills that AI is forcing on us is adaptability, to be able to pivot quickly. We can't say in 5 years, I'm going to do this. In 10 years, I'm going to do this, because we heard from Nick earlier today, right? That if somebody tells you what AI is going to be, that they have a crystal ball to see what AI is going to be in 3 to 5 years. Either they don't know what they're talking about, or there was another option. And I'll leave that off the table. So coming back to that, what can we do with our young people today that are graduating, moving into jobs, to enable them to be able to adapt to that changing environment? It's almost a skills question, but I think Joey said that AI curriculum is changing on order of what, 6 months?
Oh, faster. Yeah, weekly. Each new update is a whole new world. I think in a space like this, I've heard all the different prognostications. Like at some point it's, I think your daughter learned a whole bunch of good, how do I break down problem skills by going through the curriculum of a computer science degree. I think some of the questions are, do you enjoy what you're learning to do? Are you learning underlying skills of critical thinking, communication, teamwork, exposure to projects and some of these cutting edge tools, so that as those things change, you know how to change with it? It is a challenging time to say, hey, explicitly, this is the labor market opportunity in this field, because a lot of those fields are going to change substantially. We should care about what those labor market opportunities are, but when it's shifting so quickly, I think a lot of the advice to young people need to be, look at the labor market opportunity, also consider what you enjoy and what ignites a passion in you, because that's going to matter for you over time. And also consider, and what are the skills that are going to help you to shift should that job need to change? And, I think that that's a lot of the structure that we think about in broad university curriculum is to think, yeah, there's a discipline and a job and an occupation that we're training you for. And we're trying to give you this broad set of skills that are going to serve you across industries and also across, being a good part of society.
So to add to that, most folks don't know, so I also teach at the university. I teach research methods as well. My background's actually in education, but I went in high tech and I like sport coaching. So if you can figure out how those are related, but I think everybody has what I call the power triangle. People aren't just accountants, right? People aren't just musicians. They actually have what I call the power triangle. They usually have three distinct things that you're looking for. And what I would say is, I changed the curriculum 5 years ago so that I can force students to learn. I don't know about you guys. I hated going to school. I hated grades. I love learning. I love doing and I love building. And I think I think for the first time, we actually may be able to go back to that notion of this is a place, especially if we're here in a university, this is a place to learn. This is a place to do critical thinking. This is a place to be adaptable. We look at grades and we think about grades being, did you get your A? Did you get 4.0? My son was humbled going to Purdue University in computer engineering. And, he struggled through it, but he got through and that kind of thing. At the end of the day, we're going to go back to learning, I think. I think we need to enable students and workers on how to learn on the job. You look at a professional basketball team. How many learning hours, how many training hours does LeBron James goes through? What we ask people to do on the job is we ask them to not learn. We ask them to do. And with this whole notion of AI, we're going to actually have to take a little step back and say, it's okay to fail within these guardrails. It's okay to experiment. What I've seen over time and time over again in the last 5 years is taking a team through this journey of learning AI, and productivity goes down for at least 2 quarters. Productivity almost shuts off to 0. But what comes out the other end is a 10x factor at the end of that. And the ability to save hours, save time, more accuracy, higher quality. But that fundamental shift is going to happen, and it's already happening. And the faster we can take folks through that, the faster we're going to, see the benefits at the other end of that. So yeah, it's as we're all talking here, AI is fundamentally different. And when you look back in technology, the cotton gin, the assembly line, the computer itself, the internet, this was all supposed to save us time. I've yet to see a technology that actually saves us time. What we've seen, the early math indicates right now. So we have a team we're working with of engineers, and we have 3 engineers on a specific team project, right? So 3 to 1, one project, 3 engineers, QA, a product manager. What we're already starting to see is we're starting to say, oh, 1 engineer can actually do 3 projects at the same time. Because what we're actually seeing is if they all work on the same project, they're actually getting in the way of each other. Think about like what we call merge requests. When we're bringing code together, they're actually stumbling on top of each other because all the AI agents are actually working on it. So we actually can back up the train a little bit and go, I actually need 1 engineer to orchestrate 3 projects. Okay, so how do I better create a funnel of work? We're backing all the way up to the product manager, the use cases, the requirements. I can tell you right now, most people don't have enough time to do what they're doing today. And now we're trying to back that up and say, hey, we might actually be able to do these things now because we can actually get to them. So that's where we're at.
I have kind of a weird analogy to it. Back in the 80s when people were coding, there was this whole, floors of people, floors of people doing requirements development. And it was all these people and all these programmers, and they're all doing all this work. And then we moved into this whole sphere where development was agile, like everything's fast, get it out the door. But what I'm hearing from people in industry is because of AI, they're able to go back to that really solid requirements development and then, create a product that's so much more robust, like they were back in the olden days. So it's kind of a going around, coming around, but exactly what you're saying is making the industry much more productive, but also much better in a lot of ways.
So we heard from couple of our guest speakers that the amount of data that they're processing, Frederick, hopefully I said this right, terabytes of data per patient, ballpark petabytes. And Trent, I assume that's a similar scale with the trucks as they go from grid to grid, terabytes, petabytes of data. Josh mentioned having regional data center capability. And given the growing national and to some degree even local pushback against data centers, what strategies should Montana be looking at to be able to maintain some type of control on this new infrastructure of the future, data centers?
That's a great question.
Thank you, AI wrote that.
So as you think, I mean, I'll take a half step back. When you think about what are data centers, right? They're compute and there's electricity. If we roll back a little bit, it's quickly being commoditized. And every vendor wants their, hyperscalers want their slice of that, right? They want their little kit, they want their penny and a half per token. And I think we want to secure the future where we're going. Do I dare say it equates to water, natural resources, power generation? That computing, I think I will say it is a new economy of compute and GPUs and how many tokens can you process through there? Because what I'm seeing this huge uplift of token usage, right? We all talk about, there's memes about tokens running out of tokens by noon and waiting for your refresh and all those kind of things. But if we want to enable it across the state, I think we all need to collaborate. I think, with the data centers, I think that's what you've recognized as well, is how do we collaborate across the state about securing compute time, right? And I think it takes a lot of shapes. At the state, we already have 2 data centers. They already process things, the universities have data centers. We have private industry, private sector putting in data centers. But I think if we want to protect that and think about data sovereignty, keep data within the state, I think we need to continue to have those conversations and see what that could look like. Because I think it's going to take all of us to figure out what that means.
Good additions. The first is, I think that access to compute, thinking about it as an educational resource, because again, if our students don't have access to frontier models and to how they can be used, they're missing a step in being prepared for where the workforce is going. And the truth is, that's an expensive proposition unless we're strategizing together on how to do it. And it's also a proposition that can have some challenges in terms of data privacy, data control, those sorts of things. Those are problems that I think we need to solve together so that folks are being trained on the latest when the latest is changing bi-weekly. And then second is just what's the trend? Well, the trend is we're, for good reason, finding a lot of new reasons to use electricity. That means that we're probably going to be trying to add a lot of electricity capacity and a lot of manufacturing capacity for things in these pipelines. And those are workers that we need to think about. Like what are those fields? If it's, Montana Tech's having great conversations with the Idaho National Lab about the nuclear workforce. That's going to be a trend over the next decade, not a trend that currently Montana's well situated to serve the training pipeline. We need to be working there. Geothermal, other areas of energy development where we have resources as a state, but we're going to need to think about how we're serving those industries with the engineers, with the technicians, with the laborers who are going to help the energy transitions that help the data center development.
I was going to add one thing to that. So did anybody see the post by NVIDIA about an engineer making $500,000 a year and what the expectation was of leveraging AI was? Anybody see that? The expectation is that every engineer should be spending $250,000 in compute. That's 50% of their salary should be done in compute. Now, again, early numbers indicate that a typical engineer should be able to do about 10x, right? So if you one engineer for 10, and so you're saying $250,000, that's a lot cheaper than having 9 additional engineers. So just want to throw that math up. These are the the economies of scales that we're now starting to see, and we're starting to get validation that those things are actually viable and true and expected. Now, from where everybody is here, we can let NVIDIA, we can let Google, we can let them be the bleeding edge. But we are doing some bleeding edge here in Bozeman as well. But we can learn from that. Like, we don't have to bump into the force and get a bloody nose. But I'm very watching them very closely about what makes sense to consume for us in a I call it optimistically pragmatic way. And so if we do that, I think we can take advantage of that.
Data sovereignty brings up a slightly different question. I think we talked about this in one of our prep meetings. I had an opportunity to lead a panel in Washington and Seattle here earlier this month. And we were talking about government funding, and the woman next to me was excited about the opportunity to introduce new legislation for the governance of AI in the state of Washington. And I can't help but think, as we talk about data sovereignty, whether it's data in a medical field, whether it's data related to energy across the board, that policy is going to become more and more important. So a question for you, Chris, what do you see as the state's role in policy related to governance for AI?
Wow, let's unpack that a little bit. So, today we're at with the generative AI, and again, when I came into the state was in a pretty good spot with its policies. When you think about what's really generative AI, it's about data and security and privacy. And it's the starting point. What I usually challenge all the questions about policy is, and folks look at new policy, new decisions, is can you actually drop the word AI from that? And most of the times we can, because it's, do no harm, biasness, data protection, data sovereignty. You can actually remove the AI. What has AI really done? It's just shown things broken really fast. And because of that, we tend to hyper push. Let's say, we got to protect ourselves from AI. So what I would say is for data sovereignty is let's leverage our existing policies where they make sense. And that's, again, data, privacy, security. There's already great policies in place. We should be just refining those. I actually had a chance to talk to the CIO from the state of Washington, and they're going down the path of basically, we're going to govern all this before we do work. And it's like, okay, why? Because we're actually going down the path of let's learn a little bit and then let's apply those policies. Because what I can see right now is many times folks are trying to govern something they don't understand. And this is so important with AI upskilling, is in order to have a conversation correctly, folks have to have the same conversation. So if we want to talk about agentic, right? If we want to talk about AI making a decision, there's a whole realm of conversations around explainability, observability, replay that we need to have with that. And if folks don't understand the first part of that, we can't actually have those conversations. And so where are we going is, again, if we want AI to make a decision, just like the cars making decisions, for something at the state level, we have to be able to say, if we ever said, hey, AI is going to make a decision on somebody's benefits, let's just imagine that for a second. If that ever occurred, it has to be explainable. It has to be repeatable, right? And it has to be valid before you make that decision. Those are the things that we're starting to think about before we're actually there. So if we want to talk about those kind of policies, well, again, we have to get the rest of the organization, everybody else having that conversation so we can say, this is what makes sense for that. Because I don't believe in overly governing things in order, otherwise it's a fine line. Do we innovate or do we govern? Do we innovate or govern? And I'm with a thing of those are yin yang. They got to go together.
Yes. No, and that's been certainly different from state policy, but relative to governance within universities, the same bias is to say there's a lot of danger of over-governing this when we have good data privacy protections and process that actually cover a lot of what we want to protect within AI. What I think the bigger danger is folks not having clarity that engaging with AI is not only allowed, but expected within our organizations. And so setting up that clarity of, yeah, there are some core principles. Yeah, we want you to know some of the challenges and some of the judgment that humans need to exercise. Yeah, we want you to know where we have a contract, so it's a tool that our data privacy protections are in play. But we, at a point when something's changing so quickly and can be so transformative, don't want to go in and regulate to the degree that folks don't use the tools and use the tools in the incredible ways that they could be used.
All right, well, we'll wrap up with a lightning round for our group here. Commissioner Swanson has often encouraged multiple times during this board session for us to be strategic, to be forward thinking, to envision what can we do now to drive action in the future. So I'll just go through the group. If we fast forward 3 years, spring 2029, if Montana can get this right, what is one way AI can make things better for Montanans? And what do we need to do to make that happen?
Gosh, that's a big one. I'm gonna talk in context of K-12 education. I think in 3 years from now, if students have the opportunity to be educated with AI and to know how to use it responsibly and ethically, I think that that would be a huge win for the state of Montana. And it would also set those kids up early to be ready for the future and not listening to their little friends tell them about how they just met their best friend in the chat. So that's what I would like to see.
Two things. First, I think we have so many spaces where we have opportunities to lead on AI. You know, we had some great examples on the industry panel this morning. In Missoula, there's a great partnership between the university and the Providence Health System. One of the key feed-ins to AI is clean data. And Providence Health has one of the best electronic medical records covering rural America in the world. And I think in that space, in optics and photonics, spaces that are feed-ins to quantum computing and other aspects of AI development, like we should be thinking about what are our opportunities as a state to structure examples of what AI can do in a rural state and in rural America. So feeding into how are we pushing forward between industry and researchers, what the frontier of AI as applied to our state looks like. And that's going to have a lot of opportunities in the way to get students involved in that development.
So I was at the national CIO conference this weekend, and there was a special AI summit for 30 states were there. And I can tell you right now, as you've been hearing me talk and the way we're talking here, we're ahead of a lot of the other states already, the way we talk about it, the way we talk about it together. And it's kind of exciting because they're still thinking about policy. They're still thinking about just trying to collaborate together. And I think for us, the biggest takeaway that I can have is it's about people. At the end of the day, the technology is changing so fast. How do we enable people? And how do we collaborate? And I always say, how do we collaborate out loud? The faster we can do that, and the more we can do that, we're going to position ourselves to be, everybody's going to be able to leverage AI, and you're going to go, the entire state said, we want to do more work with those folks. We know they're bringing out the right folks that understand how to leverage this technology the best way possible. I would love to see that.
All right, well, would you join me in thanking our panel? Invite our industry partners to come back up. We have a few minutes for Q&A across the board, whether it be this panel or industry. Go ahead. This way. Questions?
I actually. Chris, sorry, I'm gonna ask this one of you because it comes, your comments on regulation as we go, I think are right on in your role and the role of a board like this. How do we educate our policy makers and elected officials who obviously are, you think about data centers in the country right now and the positives and the negatives that are going into that discussion, but so that we don't overreach either direction, to create the space we need to innovate?
That's a great question. I think, I'll go back to the point I was making is this is really about having conversations and bring the naysayers to the conversations. And let's start talking out loud about what that looks like. Again, if I could show you the things that I've been working on for the last 5 years and all the machine learning I've done for the last 20 years, again, none of us know where this is going, but I can tell you what I've seen, and we're not there yet. And so I think there's a lot more to be done, and I think there's a lot more to educate folks and enable folks. But again, I'll keep coming back to this. While it's a big technology shift, it's still about enabling people, learning, and having conversation about it in a format like this. Like next week, we're literally starting we're gonna have our first hackathon on May the 4th, Star Wars things. And we're bringing, right now we have 40 people that signed up for it. And we're just gonna put tables out and we're just gonna have conversations and we're just gonna work on things that they're interested in. It's like I think Jason says this really well. I think he talks about the curiosity, or Zach over at UM, we talk about the curiosity of people. We have a chance to do that again and be curious about what we're working on.
Maybe to help with your question,
I wasn't talking about.
you weren't talking about me?
No.
Okay. So I just want to know, how soon can we replace the legislators with AI?
I'm sorry, Mark, we have limited time. So we'll have to table that one till later.
But I appreciate your, everything that you brought forth today. I understood a little of it, but now I know that much more, and I need to know this much more from the legislative standpoint. So back to your, how do we get us there? I guess it's gonna be partly all of our job to reach out to every one of us and tell us, hey, do you understand this? And they're gonna say yes, but they don't. And then I think it just keeps going. You just say, hey, you need to come to something in your area. Cause I know Sarah's brought up a lot of good things and opportunities for us to learn things. But from your guys' standpoint, come to this. And then some of us who've been here, we can say, you guys need to go to that. Is they're still afraid that, I mean, there's that fear which you brought up. Take over jobs. I know that's not happening. If there is that fear, I better let somebody else talk.
I'll say this, my email's open. Shoot me off an email. I would, if we never need, I'm sure any of these folks here, we're going to have conversations. I'm more than happy to have conversations, so we can just sit down and just talk about it.
You get back to me when we can be replaced.
Cannot be replaced.
So I appreciate AI. I use it almost every day. You write those letters. It helps. It does save time, a lot of time. So I'm very much in favor of upskilling. What I'm concerned about though, is that when we use national data to determine trends in Montana, I can tell you right now, we support 10 CDL drivers a year, but we have over 60 applicants a year. So the jobs are there. And I'm also wondering how those vehicles gas up.
I'm not sure exactly what your first part of the question, but like the second, we obviously, a big part of, enabling self-driving technologies, all the partnerships, right? And so we work with, I'm not saying we work with Flying J, but those types of companies to say, okay, build contracts when we're on our routes. We have no turnaround points. We also upscale the gas tanks to be able to do longer hauls, but it's all contracts. It's all partnerships with both the trucks, the logistics companies. Obviously, they're gonna break down too, so we need, towing companies to go, pull them off the road. All that still exists, and we have to work with like what happens when law enforcement pulls over. We have policies, we have teams working on that. So yes, there's a lot of questions like that of fueling up and breaking down and servicing. And it's really about leveraging the current infrastructure and, getting good contracts in place, to enable the future of this type of stuff.
And if I could just kind of re-preface the first part of my non-question, which I'm gonna make into a question. So when we are having the high demand in our rural communities, we don't have the rural broadband in many places. We don't have a lot of the connectivity that cities like Bozeman have. And so when we talk about jobs and it's beyond that, it's bus drivers, it's, you know, heavy equipment. This is all really new to Montana and I think scary to a lot of people that want job security. And because CDL, CNA, those kind of positions are entry level, we're looking at national trends of fast food and retail, everything's being replaced by AI. So what does upscaling look like in these industries that it looks like people are gonna lose workforce?
Yeah, certainly. So, I mean, one of the things that we think about, and this is specific to trucking applications, right, is, you know, really where the trends go from the data that we look at is people would like to do a lot of the endpoint stuff, the last mile type situation, so they can go home, be with their family on a nightly basis, not be sedentary, sitting in a truck for 11 hours at a time. There's still an open need for a lot of that endpoint delivery. And I think when we think about the first phase of this, it's a lot of the long haul aspects. That's where I say the profitability is at right now. It's not as much on, you know, the last mile deliveries where a lot of the jobs are what people want is in that last mile stuff around home, like I said, where they can sort of sleep with their family every night. So we're seeing the trends of like, that's where people are wanting to take the positions, and we're seeing a shortage in sort of the long haul routes. I think that's one way to think about it, and upskilling as well. You know, that's what we talk about an innovation board like this, right? And that's where we started programs like Galvin College. It's like, I don't see us like displacing the current truck drivers in our lifetimes at all, right? There's such a need, logistics is growing and growing. But we do need to actively think about transformative workforce and like, okay, if they're not gonna be driving a truck, we have to, you know, test the sensors, and make sure they're still working. And that's what programs like we're on Pitt and Dallas and Galvin College is saying, all right, we're not gonna get rid of jobs, they're just gonna be different jobs, right? And so I think that's where I'm really fired up about things like we're doing at Galvin College, is that is training the next generation workforce that will have these jobs for very long times in that type of job security, because there's a need there. It's just a different type of need than what we have today. I'll also double down is like at Aurora specifically, right? It's like, we're not laying people off because we use not only AI for the way we drove self-driving trucks, we use it in our everyday business, but we have so much work to do. And I think people said that is like, there's so many things we don't do. And it's just that efficiency piece, right? So now we can have our engineers looking at data about safety and really driving the rigor and the safety concepts and everything. We're doing going back to like requirements generations, like that bulk of the work that oftentimes gets left behind because you're going fast, you have a bunch of people coding. It's like, yeah, we can use that and really impact our ability to be more efficient and hit the stuff that's going to allow it to be safer and scale better into the future. So that's how much we lean into that. And it's just like our engineers is like, we are still going to hire computer scientists. We still need those. We are safety first. We're just using some of the AI tools to do that quickly so they can focus on reviewing that, being more detailed, make better decisions on how to make the truck safer as we move forward. So that's I don't know if I fully addressed your question, but that's the way that we think about it at the Aurora.
Heather?
So my question is for Frederick. So Frederick, thank you for all that you're doing to make sure that all of us are healthier and our communities are healthier. So I'm with the Montana Hospital Association. I'm a vice president there, and I'm also a registered nurse. So I work in the healthcare industry. I have a lot of questions for you, but I'll stick with one. Part of my job at MHA is I'm part of the advocacy team. So I go before Washington DC, I go talk to congressmen, I talk to a lot of our legislators at the state level. And I would like to know what the cost of this is in regards to the work that you're doing. Because a lot of the conversations I have with our legislators and our congressmen is the cost of healthcare. I think all of us in this room, you know, we all are concerned about the cost of healthcare. And so I'm curious if there's a white paper that you've developed, or how can we support one another so we can have those conversations in regards to, if we bring this forward and we have this technology, it saves all this money, you know, like we don't have to do chemotherapy, we don't have to do this, but those are some of the talking points that I would need in order to have those conversations with people. So I'd love to know the work that you're doing.
Sure. So you're talking to my heart. We spend in 2030, we will spend $300 billion in cancer care. A very large fraction of it, 89%, is on treatment, therapeutics, chemotherapy, radiation, and so on.
And with diagnostics, you don't need that. I mean, and the problem, however, is you disturbing the status quo. If you work in the healthcare industry, you know how it is. The status quo is a big problem. Why? Big money, big pharma. Big pharma, they own Washington, DC. And therefore, they pass regulations that have no sense. The best example, which is in my mind a scandal, is that Medicare is reimbursing Ozempic for losing weight. It's frankly, it's a scandal because at the end of the day, first of all, we do not know what are the long-term effects of Ozempic. What we know, however, is that Ozempic was developed for a certain disease that has nothing to do with weight loss. And this is a problem that we have. So coming down, in fact, to my industry, I will sell you, well, I mean, not you, but your doctor, a test for about $500. The average treatment of TKA treatment, for instance, or chemotherapy treatment and so on, now that are substantially better than they were 10 years and 20 years ago, is $110,000. Immunotherapy is $150,000. I'm going to take an example, which is my personal example. 9 years ago, I was diagnosed with cancer, and I'm still going through some issues. Okay, and I'm fighting it. I'm fighting it with a treatment which is outrageously expensive. I'm going to share that with you. I have a blood disease, which is a deadly blood disease, unfortunately, but we're all going to die. The question is to know when. So I'm trying to push in the date as much as I can. I received 2 types of chemotherapy, one daily with a pill. That pill costs $275,000 a year. I receive on top of it, every quarter, I drive down to Salt Lake City, i.e. what I was saying earlier. I drive down to Salt Lake City where I receive an injection. That injection, per injection, I go 4 times a year. It's $355,000 per injection. My cost is $1.7 million to the healthcare system. I'm a nice guy, but don't you think I'm expensive? I would have been diagnosed at the times that I'm saying, I would have cost $500 for the diagnostics, and then they would have been able to do a few things. Because the beauty of what I'm creating is this: when you get cancer, cancer is a proliferation of cells. When you start to have those mutations, well, you develop the disease. The only way to get rid of the disease is to kill those cells, chemotherapy, radiation, and so on. When you are able to pick up methylation, methylation is a signature, a chemical signature, which is reversible. So we have seen in my work, we have seen that for instance, 14 or 15 genes where we have methylation, we can reverse it with a high dose, 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C, and then you get rid of it. So do you think that Pfizer and Abbott, they like to hear that? I guarantee you they don't. But this is where, in fact, the reality of the healthcare system is. And this is why today, diagnostics is the black duck of what's happening, the dark duck of what's happening in the industry. 15% of the money is going to diagnostic, 85% is going to therapeutics, because there is more money to be done in therapeutics, but you are losing your soul. Because if you work in the healthcare industry, you are here to take care of the patient and make sure that the patient is better than ever. Sorry, I'm speaking too long.
All right, we're right at time, so I'll wrap up with this. One thing that Joe and many on the panel said is that what are next steps? How do we have these conversations? Well, we've heard again and again, one of the strengths of Montana is our connectivity. Everyone is one person removed. And conversations like this can move the needle. So join me in thanking all of our panelists one more time.
Thank you so much. And before the guest speakers and panelists go, we have something for you. If you could just hang on for just a second, just a little gift to say thank you for joining us today. We greatly appreciate your expertise and knowledge. And thank you, Jason.
You're gonna move into the next session, which Tammy actually is leading on sector partnerships.
Yeah, it's just right.
Okay, we are almost at the close of our day. I love it. Lots of questions going on in the back of the room. Grabbing our speakers. That's fantastic. This one. I'm going to go ahead and continue. Thank you again for spending the last 2 days with us. Board members, your commitment is appreciated as we work together to formalize, conceptualize, and implement the governor's vision of modernizing Montana's workforce through 406 jobs. So we are closing out the 4th month in our year 1 work plan with movement in all 12 priorities underway. I'd like to thank the SWIB members who are chairing our 406 job subcommittees. Our pathway subcommittee is Sarah Schreiner and Superintendent of OCI Susie Hedeland. Our barriers subcommittee is Jason Yeager and Chanda Hermanson. Thank you so much. Our systems subcommittee is Heather O'Hara, and our sector partnership subcommittee is Paul Hopham. While work continues in each of the 12 priorities listed here that you can see on your screen, my goal is to highlight areas in the year 1 work plan at every quarterly meeting. The July meeting will focus on reducing barriers around childcare shortages, disability empowerment, and reentry strategies. Again, thank you, Jason, panelists, and industry participants for engaging in the AI discussion, because this is a fast-moving target that requires continued conversations. Before you leave today, you will hear brief updates on the JMG programs and Empowered Pathway, registered apprenticeships, and sector partnerships. So with that, I'm going to first talk about the sector partnerships. So we are preparing to launch, as we've talked about in the last couple of days, the local sector partnerships, and we're going to organize them by Mako region. Aligned with the president's talent strategies, building the workforce for the golden age pillars and Montana's 406 jobs framework, these partnerships are grounded in the principle that workforce challenges are best addressed through non-competitive collaboration, bringing employers, education, and community partners together to build shared solutions. By working collaboratively across industries, we can more effectively develop talent pipelines, we can respond to regional needs, and we can strengthen Montana's economy.
406 jobs is clear. SWIB is the convening body, and we look forward to aligning efforts statewide. The Department of Labor sector reports, which you see a couple of examples here, which provide the data foundation to guide strategic informed investments across our 6 high-demand industries, are essential building strategies. Reports have been completed for the construction trades and healthcare, which also on the screen includes the status of nursing workforce in Montana report. The education and childcare report are currently in final edits. The advanced manufacturing and computing report is anticipated for release in June, with the hospitality and recreation to follow. In addition, we are partnering with DPHHS through the Rural Health Transformation Grant, with the Department of Labor leading implementation of Initiative 1. So as a result, initial rollout of our sector partnerships will prioritize the healthcare sector to align with this focused investment. So now it is my pleasure to introduce 2 leaders advancing a key priority within the 406 Jobs Year 1 Work Plan, which focuses on strengthening career readiness and aligning education with industry needs. Heather Merritt of the Department of Labor and Industry leads the Jobs for Montana's Graduates, the JMG program, and James Easton of the Montana Chamber of Commerce leads the Empowered program. Together, these initiatives play a critical role in building, a future-ready workforce by equipping Montana students with essential employability and entrepreneurial skills, supporting schools in delivering career-connected learning, and ensuring that industry has access to a skilled, prepared talent pipeline.
Hi, everybody. My name's Heather Merritt. I'm the Director of Jobs for Montana's Graduates. While we're kind of getting things sorted out, I'm just going to start. So my first question is, how many of you are familiar with what Jobs for Montana's Graduates is? I'm kind of gauging the room so I know where to go. Okay. High level overview. What?
So we're fresh.
I can work with that. So, where I'm at with this is, if I have this, that's fine. I'm good. I'm good. So high level overview of what Jobs for Montana's Graduates is. So we have been part of the Department of Labor and Industry for about 36 years. We are growing. So the whole point of Jobs for Montana's Graduates is to ensure that students across Montana are learning those career readiness skills, those essential job skills, and also doing that career exploration. So doing that, we are actually an affiliate of a national nonprofit called Jobs for America's Graduates. They have a 3-pronged approach to make sure that students are prepared. So their theory is, if a student, and I'm using the term loosely because this is anywhere from junior high all the way up to our partnerships at the college level. So they're saying that by doing project-based learning, students are engaged. They're staying into the school system. When you also address trauma-informed care, because while things are happening on the screen, I'm sorry about that. When you address trauma-informed care, it discusses how do you deal with the situations that have happened in the past and how do you work through that. And then the last is employer engagement. So that work-based learning, I don't have my slides anymore. So by doing that, you're doing the on-the-job training, you're doing the job shadowing, you're doing all of that. So we are an affiliate of Jobs for America's Graduates. Our goal is to, sorry, I apologize. I'm so sorry. It's
I brought tech support.
Yay, I'm gonna leave. So I humbly apologize. No, it's okay. So the way that we do this is that we have competencies or foundational learnings, foundational trainings that we have schools focus on during the school year. Are we good? Okay. This is what I was talking about just a minute ago. When you have the trifecta, students are learning those real world competencies, they're developing a positive culture and an environment where every student is successful. Our goal really is this, to make sure that we are all working together to make sure that every person, every young adult is prepared for that success. So the way that we do that is there's competencies, there's those foundational learnings. This is what we focus on. We focus on that career development, the job attainment, and job persistence. Everybody needs to know, how do you get a job? How do you keep that job? And how do you quit a job appropriately? I know that we have some employers in the room. How many have had employees just walk off the job? We want to teach them how to do that appropriately because we don't want bridges burned. The second piece of this is the work readiness skills. So the communication, leadership, self-development, and those personal skills are that decision-making, critical thinking piece. So how does this tie into 406 jobs? It's eliminated, or in the 406 jobs initiative, it says every Montanan with a pathway is geared with a pathway to success. We're assisting with that, reducing those barriers, JMG growth, empowered and JMG alignment. Part of the 406 jobs initiative is that 4 pathways to success. Those pathways are career, college, entrepreneurship, or military. So those are the 4 things that we focus on in every classroom. Now what's on the horizon? So again, Jobs for America's Graduates is the parent, we are the child. So I want to share out some of these things that are on the horizon. Jobs for America's Graduates have about 3,000,006 competencies that they are all individualized. It's how do you perform written communication? How do you perform verbal communication? I mean, everything is lined out. What they did is they chunked all these and put them into 15 components. So it's that interpersonal, interpersonal, and systemic categories. So this is what Jobs for America's Graduates is doing, that is running down the pike, and what JMG is doing at the local level. The second thing is something that I'm super excited about. And it's the job readiness credential. Earlier this year, JAG National submitted the job readiness credential to the credential registry that is in Montana, with the premise of having 3 different tiers of credential attainment. The way that they wrote it, it would be in alignment with future ready payments, the STARS Act, and so on and so forth. So the way that it works out is you have the foundations. Those are just the learning, those initial job readiness skills, those initial soft skills. And then it transitions to emerging, established, and the highest, which is distinguished. I am super excited about this. I think that, just in general, it's great to have the skills, or it's going to be great to have youth have the ability to have a piece of paper saying, yes, I am job ready, and having data to back it up. So before I hand it over to my good buddy James, who's going to talk about Empowered, I want to give you some data because we can't leave here without data, and I love it. So, beginning, this data is fresh from February of this year. Jobs for Montana's graduates started the year with being in 69 schools across the state. We are now at 79. We have engaged 1,153 students across the state. Last year, one of the components that we do is we follow up on our seniors. In 2025, there was 205 seniors. Out of that, 176 graduated, which is an 86% graduation rate. Out of those seniors who have graduated, I love this number, 84% are engaged in the workforce right now.
Graduated with the JMG.
Yep. Yes, they are JMG. They have graduated. They're JMG engaged, and 86% are engaged in the workforce. So it's just cool numbers out there. Anyway, thank you. I'll hand it over to my good buddy James.
That mic needs to step back. That mic probably needs to be turned off. I'm James Easton. I'm with the Montana Chamber Foundation, which is the educational foundation of the Chamber of Commerce. It is me and another half-time employee. And within our strategic pillar, obviously we have a few board members and Adam and Jason and Patty within the Commerce of the foundation. But just to tie in the partnership of what we're doing, and we got four things. Yeah, turn them off. Nobody needs those mics on. I can cover the owl. Everybody online is going to be just fine. I bring my own feedback. Like this, we'll get into it. We kind of have 4 lanes. I'll get into it. Professional development. One of the strategic partnerships of the 406 jobs is for the first year, we're going to do a professional development of hopefully about 60 educators with JMG and Empowered, trying to get a recruitment of more JMG, get some of these Empowered teachers that are using this resource. It's a free resource that I'll get to, and try to build some recruitment and let them know what they're doing is already kind of there, and they can get the support from us at the Chamber and at JMG. So that's one thing that we do in our avenue of professional development. We support Empowered, which is a educational nonprofit based out of Wichita. We're the only partner in the country that 8 years ago said, hey, we're going to put some people on the ground to kind of push teachers. And we heard about it in a couple other panels about trying to build more experience-based education and let kids fail and layer in more of that stuff into curriculums across K-12 and then maybe expand out, right? So a lot of what the Empowered is trying to get teachers, and I was an educator, business and special education for 17 years. I did a lot of it, and trying to we're going to get these experiences, and guess what? You can get 100% and fail, right? You can go and do this and fail, but guess what? You're learning what you're good at, what you're bad at, you know who you need to lean on, all of those types of things. And so Empowered is a free resource, and sometimes it's hard, and it's fun to get to go support educators because we're so used to scope and sequence and like this linear, like chapter 1 quiz, right? Chapter 2 quiz, and let's disrupt that a little bit to build in experiences. It could be an entire class with some of these capstone things and change them up a little bit, like within a JMG, or it could be just getting some experiences. So that's Empowered, and anybody obviously can reach out, Adam and Patty and Jason. You guys hear me talk too much, and so if you guys need to excuse yourself to the hall, I get it. Heather, I met Heather last night at dinner, and so I told her I was gonna embarrass her, and got her to laugh out loud, red face. But other than that, you guys, we get to do career career awareness. We got cultivating careers. If anybody's hanging out in the area tomorrow, one of our main sponsors, RDO, we got Frontline Ag. We're going to have about 40 to 50 experience-based businesses in cultivating careers. We're going to be doing those in Miles City. We're doing one Sealy Lake. If anybody's in Sealy tomorrow, we'll have one at Sealy too. And we don't do the whole state. We have the capacity for probably 6 or 8 of those. But the whole idea between that is these kids get in the equipment. They're going to run the self-driving tractor. They're going to go in and, like, you know, when I did it, a pharmacist showed up and they just had kids test their blood sugar. But the second side of it is starting from middle school through high school is to break down that relationship wall. We don't know the careers, right? You're saying, hey, we need kids to learn careers. They need to learn to build relationships with the brand before you're actually, because again, most of you guys would see me again later on, but until you meet me 3 or 4 times, you're not going to say hi because humans are going to be like, I don't know. And that doesn't matter what age you are. So if we can start to build relationships with businesses cyclically from middle school through high school, by the time they get to that sophomore, junior, senior year, they've seen this company 4 or 5 times. Now you're comfortable to say, hey, how's your day? Like, how do I get a job, right? So we break down, so we build those relationships with communities along with career awareness. So it's kind of flipping up a career fair a little bit, and that's been fun to do. Tomorrow, we're at Park High in the fairgrounds. If you guys want to get in, Matt was saying it's the big 4-wheeled green tractor, self-driving. He said it was a monster. So if you see the news that a couple kids got ran over, it was self-driving, it was AI. No, but no, it's going to be good. They're going to be set. Hey,
Senator Nolan's got a bill ready to go.
So we do cultivating careers, and that is awesome. And then we also do the prospects. I'll invite you guys if you want to come back to campus, May 18th. So we take the empowered activities. We do a statewide pitch competition, K through 12. We had some amazing kindergarten and second graders we had 9 of them this year that are doing it. And then but the top 10 kids are going to come, and the prospects is a 2-minute pitch video, like 1,000 words or less. And we want kids to start solving problems in their community, the next big thing. And then we also highlight these kids. We had 20 kids in high school that are already have their own businesses, right? And so the pitch competition, May 18th at 9 o'clock at the Jake Jabs School of Business, right in the middle. But we'll start at 9, goes till about 1. We give out $5,000 to the top 2 winners. But it's a highlight of what these kids are doing. And so there's now we'll go back to AI and photonics, because one of the finalists this year, his problem is he's a swimmer. And if anybody's a swimmer, I'm not competitively, but I guess the soft touch, when you hit the timer, you know, those sometimes you can get a soft touch and you don't get a time, right? And it takes 4 pounds of pressure. And so he's now in the stages, this is a high school kid, trying to work on photonics to get rid of the 4 pounds of pressure to be able to make a timing map, right? So that's what this kid has thought up, going to start working on and doing, and that's a kid coming up with a new idea. And then some of the existing businesses are pretty awesome. We got some kids that are doing a clothing brand in Missoula. You know, his followers are already $300,000, and this kid's a junior in high school, right? And so he's doing art drops with clothing like 3 times a year. So it's really cool to see what the kids are doing. So that's where we're at. The best part is we get to leverage now with JMG, and like, why are we built? And the partnership is the best part, and I'll end it there. Me and one other guy standing from a car ride home. So with that, I'm super excited that we're actually starting to, I know everyone's like, shut it down. And I love you. Have a great day. If you have questions, I don't know why you're gonna go
Thank you very much, Heather and James. Okay, mental note. I need James to either be a part of the day where I need to wake people up, or at the end, just to energize the last part of the day. So thank you. We're almost done. I want to talk about apprenticeships now. And before I do that, and I will be brief, and then I have Erin coming up to, I'm going to tag her in here as well. Heather and James, if you go back to that 33-page document of the year 1 plan, They are moving the needle on what the task is. And so that is fantastic. Thank you very much. Apprenticeship, National Apprenticeship Week. Technical difficulties, there's something.
Oh, for fun, that's 2 years old. We have 708 teachers. I'm the only one that does the website, so obviously I'm the only one that doesn't do the website. It's me.
I hear math's good with websites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, AI is gonna get it.
Yeah, I can get it. So we were looking at short.
There we are.
There we go.
I should get a bell or music or something, sorry. National Apprenticeship Week. Okay, so Montana, our Apprenticeship Council, they actually met yesterday, and they continue to play a central role in advancing the state's priority of expanding registered apprenticeship. Grounded in a strong industry-led approach, these programs combine paid on-the-job training with structured related instruction, which is often delivered in partnership from our Montana colleges. But also, I want to call out the other strong training providers, like we toured this morning, Williams Plumbing, as well as our union-affiliated joint apprenticeship training centers. The success of their programs are unbelievable and add to the workforce in Montana. So thank you. We are also proud of the work being done with the Independent Electrical Contractors Association in ensuring that apprentices gain both practical experience and technical knowledge. So in the year one plan, our goal is to increase apprenticeships participation by 20%, add 12 new apprenticeship pathways, define 6 new pre-apprenticeship pathways in each high priority sector, and increase pre-apprenticeship participation by 50%. Well, I can tell you that Glenn Disk, the state director of our registered apprenticeship, and his teams are hard at work driving momentum to build on, and key milestones to date include the following. We're on track for a fall launch for our new teacher apprenticeship program. We have achieved 8 of the 12 new pathway goals and onboarding more than 260 apprentices. And that's in a very short time. The team is also advancing youth apprenticeship through the National Governors Association Academy with a new framework proposal and draft of approved apprenticeship policies currently underway. So stay tuned for more information on that. We've talked a lot about pre-apprenticeships as well as I know that it was mentioned on the youth apprenticeships, which is really important. With 63% of pre-apprenticeship expansion goals, we've already met that. Montana is well positioned to exceed the targets and accelerate growth across the sectors. Registered apprenticeships, including pre-apprenticeships and youth apprenticeships, are absolutely a successful sector strategy for local talent development. They are employer designed and ensure direct career pathways for employment are readily available across the state. Reducing barriers to apprenticeships, including lack of employer awareness, incentives for apprentice mentors, and occupational licensing restrictions are key priorities that we are addressing. And then building on this progress and the broader policy landscape supporting workforce access and mobility, I am thrilled to introduce Erin Sullivan. She's the policy analyst with the Department of Labor, and she's going to provide an update on the governor's newly established licensing task force.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. Oh, okay. Yes, thank you all for having me today. As Tammy said, I'm Erin Sullivan. I am a policy analyst with the legal division at the Department of Labor and Industry, and I also serve as lead staff for the Governor's Licensing Reform Task Force. And I was asked to come just for the very last part of your meeting today, which is fine, to give you just a high-level overview of the task force today. So the Governor's Licensing Reform Task Force was established by Governor Greg Gianforte on January 29th, 2026. The purpose of the task force is to provide the governor with recommendations and strategies for the state of Montana to reform the professional occupational licensing system by, one, identifying and removing barriers faced by licensees that are not necessarily necessary to protect the public, and two, improving access to and availability of professional services for citizens across Montana, including rural communities. Over the last 10 years, professional and occupational licenses issued in the state of Montana have doubled, and the number of occupations subject to professional licensure have increased, but there has been no comprehensive review of existing regulations to determine if those licensing requirements are truly protecting the health, safety, and welfare of Montanans. Reducing barriers to work is a key focus of the Governor's 406 Jobs Initiative, and the Licensing Reform Task Force aligns with the goals of 406 Jobs, providing a comprehensive review of existing licensing structures to ensure the regulations are necessary, effective, and narrowly tailored to protect the public without unduly burdening the ability to work in the state of Montana. There's several executive order initiatives that were included that the task force is working on. Some of those include reviewing if there's a public benefit provided by licensure, if licensure significantly increases the cost of service to the public, if qualifications for licensure are justified, if unnecessary barriers exist for applicants, whether licensing requirements contribute to workforce shortages, especially in rural areas, what opportunities exist for portability, reciprocity, or endorsement for licenses, whether licensing structures are aligned with state and federal rural health transformation initiatives, and then if public support exists for continued licensure, and there's others. So the task force is chaired by our own Commissioner, Sarah Swanson of the DLI, and it is a bipartisan group that is focusing on bolstering the workforce. In fact, Senator Nolan is on it as well. And so focused on bolstering the workforce, particularly in healthcare and construction, by streamlining regulations and reporting recommendations for the 2027 legislative session by September 2nd of this year is when the report is due. So the task force was enacted at the end of January and first convened in mid-February. The members of the task force represent various occupations, including nursing, behavioral health, engineering, accounting, and the trades, among others. Members include legislators, board members, representatives from trade and other associations such as the Montana Hospital Association, the Primary Care Association, the Building Industry Association, et cetera. At the first meeting, the task force divided its work into 4 subcommittees to help tackle all the initiatives that are outlined in the executive order. So the barriers subcommittee has topics that include obstacles to licensure, criminal history, duplicative training, fees, and administrative delays. The construction subcommittee has topics that include trades and related professions, timelines, costs, safety, and workforce availability. The healthcare subcommittee, their topics include healthcare and behavioral health, workforce shortages, telehealth, scope of practice, and rural health. And the sunset subcommittee is the last one, and that includes topics about the legislature's authority to review licensing boards, processes, updates, or modernization. These subcommittees have been meeting weekly on a rotation to address their specific topics. The task force recently held its second full task force meeting last week or 2 weeks ago on April 13th, where each subcommittee presented its work plan. The barriers subcommittee is primarily looking at licensing requirements, rural and geographic barriers, administrative inefficiencies, and re-entry related barriers such as background checks. The construction subcommittee is looking at a review of the new construction contractor licensing program, a review of the independent contractor program, enforcement and apprenticeships, and other workforce availability options. And then they are also looking at licensing requirements. The healthcare subcommittee is perhaps the busiest one. It's looking at expanding pathways, including interstate compacts, telehealth, ways to improve access to care, and opportunities for career advancement. And this subcommittee is taking a hard look at rural health in conjunction with the Rural Health Transformation Program, as several of the metrics in Initiative 1 of the RHTP are related to workforce opportunities for healthcare licensees. And then finally, the Sunset Subcommittee is really looking at doing kind of a feasibility analysis and necessity for enacting sunset provisions. And if so, if that is a recommendation, what the criteria would be for new sunset reviews. The next full task force meeting is June 8th, which is a Monday, and it's going to actually be held at City College in Billings. And at that meeting, each of the subcommittees will present any recommendations that have been drafted so far. I do expect to see some preliminary recommendations from the construction, the barriers, and healthcare committees at that meeting. And then the meeting will also include healthcare specific discussions, such as recruiting, apprenticeships, and educational opportunities, all the way from CTE in high school up to postgraduate opportunities. As the task force is working through the executive order initiatives, members are being very mindful of other workforce initiatives and to the best of its abilities, ensuring that any recommendations that come out of the task force are in alignment with both 406 jobs and RHTP. A big focus through the task force, through their work, is workforce availability, especially in construction and healthcare sectors. And so the task force is looking at apprenticeships, educational pathways, license qualifications, and portability opportunities through compacts or qualification changes to align with national and other state standards. At the June 8th meeting, after the June 8th meeting, the subcommittees will each meet 2 more times and then develop their final recommendations. The final in-person task force meeting is on August 21st in Butte, and it will review all of the subcommittee recommendations and obtain consensus on what will go in the final report. All meeting information, agendas, materials, recordings, everything that the task force and subcommittees are doing are all available on the Licensing Reform Task Force website, and all meetings are open to the public. We encourage anyone who is interested to attend either the virtual subcommittee meetings or the in-person full task force meetings. And again, those full meetings are June 8th at City College in Billings and August 21st at Montana Tech in Butte. Public comment is highly appreciated, and there is a form on the website, or members of the public can provide live comments during the meetings. We've already received very useful public comments, and the subcommittees are incorporating that into their work. So please, if you have a chance, take a look at the website. Feel free to contact me with any questions, and I'm happy to give more detail or answer any questions now.
You just repeat that again.
Yeah. Is this recorded? Let's just watch that.
Just thank you, and really important work you're doing. So. All right. Perfect.
Thanks, Erin.
We have one final opportunity for public comment in this board meeting. So I will open the floor both in the room and online for public comment.
Hi, love.
Hello.
Did you go to the meeting today?
Oh.
Are you upset?
Here, I'll mute her. There we go. I want you to see public comment. Oh, very good.
You guys are long.
Seeing no public comment, I want to thank the board for a productive couple of days. I also want to thank the staff from the Department of Labor, from OPI, from the higher education. There's a lot of work that went on behind the scenes to make the votes we took this morning a reality, and that doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you very much. The last challenge I'd maybe give to the board as we leave and think about where we're headed we're writing a new chapter in, workforce in the state of Montana and the country more broadly. And this process is gonna require collaboration, partnership. There's probably going to be some difficult and challenging conversations as sometimes decades-long policies and methods of work are going to change. And it's both exciting and probably a little scary for everybody that's involved, but we should look at it as an opportunity and in a way, the end of the day, to create a workforce and a pathway for Montana's next generation to find rewarding careers that keep them here. And I think if we stay focused on that as our end goal, the rest of it works itself out. So appreciate you all, and with that, I will adjourn. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.
We tried to bring that company from Germany to Bozeman. Their tech already used it.
All right.
Next.
So when I came back, yeah, how are Can I eat? Then I went into. Yeah.
That's exactly what I was getting. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. That's fantastic. It was really odd because I knew like it wasn't, I didn't say anything. I keep that right. I hit stop. I think when I get to present. So.